We've done all the physical setup, put all the screws in place, and everything on the robot's wrist is essentially set up. Now we need to wire it all together and make sure that the network components can all talk to each other properly. So we start with the cable for the force torque sensor. We've already connected that and made sure that no forces are ever transferred from the robot's movement to that part of the cable. Generally, in this case, that is not a major issue because this gripper doesn't have any cables. But if you need to run cables from the robot's wrist across to the gripper or whatever end effector you're using, do make sure that no movements from the robot will transfer to the gripper via that cable. So make sure there's enough play and everything's fit super tightly in place. So either you do not transmit any forces from the flange to the tool, or if so, only a constant force that can later on be deducted by the system. If you get changing forces that you apply to this from the cables, then your MIRAI skills will drift and you will be very frustrated. Okay, other cables that we need to connect. There is just simply the very basic ring light connector that we can put in here, and the USB cable. The USB cable for the camera gets just plugged in and screwed safely in place. Again, these cables are sort of fragile, so if you're doing a proper production setup, what you want to do is make sure to get hold of a bunch of zip ties now and mount them to the robot or secure them to the robot in a way that when the robot moves, this doesn't move, because otherwise this is the point where the cable will break most easily. Okay. All these cables need to go somewhere. The cable from the force torque sensor goes to the control box of the force torque sensor. So it gets connected here. The control box also has a power cable, which you just plug into your mains on the other side. And about the network part, we'll talk later. All the other things are going to be connected to the MIRAI control box. On the MIRAI control box, we start with screwing in the antenna, like here. And I believe there. Then there's the power supply cable. This comes from the power supply that comes with the MIRAI control box, and it goes here. Then there's the other end of the camera cable that we have just connected. So we'll connect that to one of the USB 3 ports in the back. So this is everything that isn't network. So next we're going to build the Ethernet setup, the network for the robot, the MIRAI box, and the force torque sensor to talk to each other. We need one of these for it. This is just a standard gigabit Ethernet switch, and this is what we will use to put all these components together in the single network. So we're going to control the on-robot force torque sensor control box to this. We're going to connect the robot's service port or Ethernet port to this, and we're going to connect the robot LAN, so the red port of this robot, to this switch here. It's happening under the table in our test setup, and I'll just quickly and quietly do that while you're not watching. This. The Ethernet port for the robot is on the bottom of the Universal Robot Controller. So just run an Ethernet cable from that port into the switch. There's one cable left to be plugged in, which is this one. This is something you'll just have to have. This is just an Ethernet cable that provides internet, so from your router or wherever else you get your internet from. And it needs to be DHCP, so the MIRAI control box can just obtain an IP address from doing DHCP on that interface. The control box is the only component that will have access to the internet. The robot, the tablet, the other control boxes will not be exposed to the internet and will not have access. Also, you can unplug this once your setup is fully done and you've done all the training. You only need that to upload data during training, download the skills, test them, and afterwards you can unplug this, move the whole setup into production without any internet connection. We've now put all the cables in the right places. We've connected all the wires. So physically, we have already created the robot network connecting the robot itself or the robot controller, the MIRAI controller, and the control box for the on-robot force torque sensor. What we haven't done is the logical configuration to put all of these components into one network so they can talk to each other. And we do that by configuring the IP addresses for these components. We don't have to do that for the MIRAI controller. It's already pre-configured to 192.168.100.5. But we do need to put the robot into the same network and configure it to use the address 0.100.100. You do this in the settings and the network configuration. And we do need to use the web interface of the on-robot force torque sensor control box to configure this component for a static address at 0.100.15. You need to set a couple dip switches and log into a web interface to make that configuration. It's described in the on-robot force torque sensor manual. There's one step left. We need to turn on the MIRAI Box, which is what we've all been waiting for. It should be, the power switch is down here. It should be glowing red and turn green as I switch it on. It gives two beeps. The first beep indicates that it's now booting and it has energy. The second beep, happening after roughly 30 seconds, indicates that it's ready to do business and talk to all the other components, and we can move on to doing all the interesting software stuff that comes after. And now we just wait for the beep.